Record. All right. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining me on my very first book talk for Undiscovered Voices. It's available on Amazon. It's very easy to find. You can either put my name in, Sarah Muniz, or you can put Undiscovered Voices. This is a live video right now. So the first 5 to shoot me over an email, and I have the email in, it's supersarah40@gmail.com. If you, I think that's in chat, you should be able to see it, but the first 5 to send me over a email signed copy, I will send you a signed copy of the book. And just to let you know a little bit about who I am and why I wrote this book, and just kind of a little bit of insight on it. And yes, I am a little bit crazy, so that's part of the reason why I decided to put a book with a lot of vulnerability out there in it. So my name's Sarah Muniz. I'm actually in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've been in the insurance industry for 21 years. And it's been kind of like a blessing and a curse at the same time. And I'm sure many of you guys can relate here, where it's been one of those type of careers where I fell into it. There's been lots of opportunities, but there's also been a lot of walls, a lot of ceilings, a lot of opportunities that I haven't been able to get to, or success that I've been able to reach due to a lot of bias in our industry and the norm of people thinking that men are more in sales than women, or men do better in insurance than we do. And I kept on hearing the same kind of stories when I was going to conferences about how we don't have enough talent in the insurance industry and we need to attract the new generation. And as I'm sitting here thinking about all the struggles I've had and how hard it is for me to move up, and there's been many times where I've tried to pivot and think, okay, well, what other kind of career can I go into that I'll have more opportunity? I struggle with the fact that we didn't have enough talent. It really just kind of rubbed me wrong that all the men, let's be honest, most of the men were the ones saying that. So that was like part of my motivation for writing the book. The second part was I was talking to a friend of mine who is all about motivating females in the insurance agency, female owners of insurance agencies. And I told her my story about how I worked for this awful employer that said that if I ever shared my story of what happened to me while working for him, that he would blacklist me in the insurance industry. And when her response to me was, who's this man? How does he have so much control and power over you? And that bothered me, that 3 years after he fired me, and he fired me for crying, essentially, because he was just an awful person. And he still had that power. He still had me under his thumb after he basically, my career went backwards at that point. My confidence was shattered. I was just really having a hard time struggling with myself. And 3 years later, I was doing better. I still wasn't where I was before I started working for him, because I left a 6-figure income to go take a chance, a leap of faith that didn't work out. But I don't know, he just crushed me in a lot of ways. It took a long time to build my confidence back up. And then in 2019, my confidence was pretty good, but I was still sharing that I couldn't share my story because I was scared of him and he still had that power over me. So it was a mixture of me seeing that there's a problem, that everyone's saying we don't have enough talent, when all I see is talent in our industry, just not getting the chance to move up the way it should. And trying to solve the talent crisis that's not really a talent crisis with the women already in our field. But also, I wanted to get my story out there and say, you know what, this guy's not going to have any more power and control over me. He already hurt my confidence for a few years, and I've been scared of him, and he's had that power over me. And now not only am I not going to, am I going to share a story, I'm going to share a story and write in a book that anybody can get their hands on and read. So those are my two, like that. The fire that got in me was the fact that she kind of challenged me and was asking me how he still had that power and control. So I took my power and control back by getting this book out there. And I am very upfront about the story that happened with him and what all occurred while I worked for him. There was many other stories along the way as well. I don't just share my story. I wanted to find other women that aren't just on the agency side, but in different parts in the industry, different age groups, and get their stories and gather them. Some of them are success stories, like these are all the obstacles that were removed out of their way, and they were very successful. And so then I use them as an example of, this is what our industry should look like. This is the kind of talent that we could really reach the full potential for if we followed this pattern and took these obstacles and helped them find a career path. And then I have a lot of not so good stories, and those are kind of like the, let's stop doing this, I'm putting it out there, and now you know. And so for the guys that are saying, oh, no, this isn't really happening anymore, we're more equal, this and that, I'm saying, no, it's not. It's still happening to me on a daily basis. And pretty much every other woman that I talk to in a small room, we all share the similar stories. The difference is that when we're in a larger room with other men that can hear us, or men in leadership, we can't share those stories because, for one, they're going to try to hold it against us. But for two, they don't care. They're not going to listen. And so they're not hearing the stories because they're not living the life that we all are living. So it was awareness. So I wanted to go over the topics in the book and just kind of go like chapter by chapter and give you just like a little quick synopsis. So the first half of the book is really just putting out there what the problem is. And so the chapters actually are research-based. So, and then in between the chapters are the personal stories of the ladies that can relate, that I feel like correlated the best with that chapter. So, for example, chapter 1 is about women in the insurance field. What are we good at? How long have we been here? What is it that we excel at? And essentially, at the end of the chapter, I say that women are the backbone of insurance. We're the best at it. We have built-in empathy, which really helps us excel and give the clients what they need. We don't just think about dollars. I mean, money is important. Money makes me happy, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, it's not the money that motivates me. It's the feeling good about what I do at the end of the day, helping others. So that's chapter 1. Chapter 2, I really go into the difference between male and female brains. And I found that really important because as I was writing the book and I was talking to other people and then saying, well, but women, their brains are wired different and they don't crunch numbers the way men do, or they don't do this, they don't do that. So they're putting limitations on us that just aren't true. We all, when I did my research, we all come to the same answers and conclusions, and we have the same abilities. At the end of the day, we are just as able as men to do any task. We may just think it through differently than they do. It may be like a shorter, dots to get there because they're not thinking through all this different scenarios. But we still, at the end of the day, we still come to the same conclusions. The difference though, and it's actually to the benefit of women, we have built-in talent for empathizing, for communicating. And this is like from the time we're born, we really know how to nurture. And that's actually, for the insurance industry, that's one of the most important abilities. Like everyone's talking about soft skills and how those can't be trained and how they can't be taught, and you either have them or you don't have them. And I'm not saying I think they can be trained to a point, but you have to have the ability to communicate. You can't be a Sheldon. I don't know if you guys have ever watched Big Bang Theory, but he has no social skills. You can't be a Sheldon and really excel. And there's not a lot of female Sheldons because most of us, from the time we're born, we really know how to communicate. We can read others. We're almost psychic. Like everything I read, like we have psychic abilities. We can really feel for others. Chapter 3, I go into more of society type things, and then I also tie it into insurance, but I talk about why we don't speak up, what happens to us? What are the repercussions? What is the world telling us? The world is telling us that you should be small and act small and stay in your place. And I use a corset analogy about how a corset is not, like it was all about making women look little and have like little tiny waistlines, but it wasn't healthy. A lot of the times it made labor really hard for them. And we're still being corseted by ideas. And we're still, let's face it, sometimes I still wear Spanx and that hurts. I don't like it. And it probably is crushing all my organs. It's not good for us, but you don't see men doing that. The bigger, the better is what it is for men. So why can't it be the bigger, the better for us? It should be very, similar, really. And so I really go into that. And then I go into when I wrote this book, I actually got fired in 2020 for writing the book because the guy I worked for told me that he didn't want other men to know that a woman that worked for him wrote a book that might upset men. And the book isn't about upsetting men. It's about putting light on something that's still happening, issues that we're still having. And then I go into mental health and fear, how a lot of male leaders and just leaders in general use fear as a motivator rather than really looking at what truly works for people to be motivated. And at the end of the day, it's about seeing what your future holds with the company. And it's about learning and training, but using fear and telling someone that they suck is not going to motivate them and help them reach their full potential, because they're just going to feel like they suck and get burnt out and try to find somewhere that is more supportive and has a better culture. And then I go into the importance of noticing when people are not acting like themselves or feeling down, and trying to kind of help people with their mental health at work. That's really important to me because for a really long time, I've struggled with depression, and it has affected me in many ways. And a lot of times it's triggered by, I work somewhere that I don't feel good about myself, and then the boss is yelling at me all the time. And so then I start really absorbing that message and just not feeling good about myself about anything. I just let it take control of me. And I think a lot of other people struggle with that too. Not just women, men too, but a lot of times because we're seen as the weaker sex, which we're not. I dare say we're the stronger sex, but because we're seen that way, like we're more likely to be beat up on than a big old 6-foot guy. Even a little 5'5" guy probably isn't going to get beat up on as much as we would. So and then because of what other people said, I talked to some other male leaders, and they were saying, well, the reason why women don't make as much money as men in our industry is because men have to support their families. And I did the research, and that's absolutely 100% false. We are the ones that usually financially support our families. And if for whatever reason we don't have a husband, either divorced, maybe we're just a single mom to begin with, we are the ones financially responsible for that family and those children. Always. Like, it's not very common for the man to be the one raising the kids, and then they give you $500 for child support that maybe covers groceries for a couple weeks. I'm sorry, that's not supporting a family or a household. So I put in that argument and the stats that go with that. I talk about how insurance industry and probably business in general promote average men. So I'm talking, there's nothing special about them. They're okay. There's nothing that should make them excel in any field. But these average men, just because they're men, typically white men, they are moving up way quicker, like 10 years quicker than a talented superwoman woman. So it's really hard when you're like super awesome at something, and then you're watching other people who are maybe getting 50% of the sales that you are, or maybe they're not as good at communicating with clients, and you see them moving up and you're still right here, and they're telling you that you're right here. because they need you right here, because this is what you're good at and this is all they feel like your potential is, versus a man that's not even doing that well, but moving all the way up here, making double income and getting to do whatever he wants career-wise. That's really frustrating, I feel, for all of us. So I really want to lay down the foundation. That's the first 6 chapters. The 7th chapter was, now we're talking about the talent shortage and what the perception is, after we've just talked about all the problems. And then the second half of the book is really talking about the benefits of women in leadership, how we make companies more money. The more we are up in leadership, the more diversity and discussions that there are in leadership, how we really help companies excel, and then how you find all your female talent. So then we get kind of in the notes. I'm nuts and bolts. I'm hoping that if people make it to chapter 8, then at this point they're open to, let me see where all the talented women are in my company, and how do I help them reach their potential in my company or in the insurance industry that they want, so that we can get their full rock star status over here. So and then I go into utilizing your newfound talent, like how you're going to utilize them, how mentoring really helps. And then my very favorite chapter is chapter 12. I actually had my daughter write that chapter, and it's all about Gen Z's viewpoint. And then the last chapter is just taking action. So that's essentially the book in a nutshell. There's a lot more words than what I told you about it, but I just wanted to kind of give you an overview and then give you a chance to ask me any questions that you may have. So if you want to unmute, if you have a question, there's a small enough group of us that you can just unmute and talk, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Yes.
It sounds like a great book that is highly needed in our industry, because touch on what so many of us see day to day.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I hope you enjoy it, because well, I'll tell you here in a second, but I hope you enjoy it, because you'll be getting a copy.
Yeah, well, it's very, very frustrating to be pigeonholed, and you're right. We will be more productive, take on more responsibility, and they'll promote somebody who's doing half the work above them.
Absolutely. It is. It's frustrating when you're hitting that wall with your head all the time. Like you're bleeding from your head and you're like, why am I bleeding when this person doesn't even know what's going on?
Which then, right, then you start thinking not about talent. As if it was about talent, there's no question. But they go drinking every Friday, or they go golfing, or whatever it is, you're promoting. It's just highly frustrating.
It is. Absolutely. Did you have a comment or a question, Shoshana? I saw that you unmuted a second ago.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to not cough. So I bought the book and I was reading it, and it was sad that same crap happening for a long time. So I'm new to